שיוויתי השם ונגדי תמיד, 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 לנגדי תמיד. שיוויתי השם ונגדי.
Shalom friends, and welcome to the Spirit of the Torah. I know that for a lot of people, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are taken very seriously, even by people who don't fully participate in them, maybe people who just go briefly to synagogue perhaps for one or more of those days. They have a sense that something serious is happening and it's important. Hence we do see a lot of people go to synagogue in those days who do not go on other days. But Sukkot, which follows a few days after Yom Kippur, I think is still an enigma to many of us, myself included. What is this festival of joy, as the Torah does emphasize about it, and as we say over and over again in our prayers about it? What is this festival of joy doing a few days after Yom Kippur? What is it really about? And what are we trying to enter into when we enter into the sukkah, the booth that we make that is so temporary and so fragile, whose roof has to be made from materials that grew from the earth? It really reminds me of the mikveh, the body of water that we immerse ourselves in for a ritual immersion, which is a kind of rebirth. The mikveh and the sukkah, it's been pointed out, are the only two mitzvot, the only two commandments or connections that we perform them by being entirely inside something. Our whole body, our whole being goes into the sukkah. So what does it mean to perform this mitzvah, to connect with the infinite source in this way, and also shaking the four species, what's going on with that? So I'd like to start with a teaching from the Arizal, great Kabbalist of the 1500s in Sfat in northern Israel. And he says that from the moment Yom Kippur ends, everything that happens is defined by an energy of loving embrace. And his student, Rav Chaim Vital, writes this down in the Pri Etz Chaim. He says that we are being embraced by the right hand, as it were, of the divine. And that means the quality of chesed in the Sephirot, the qualities of the tree of life, which is the Kabbalist's map of reality and the map of the divine. Chesed is the right shoulder and the right arm. So we are being embraced by that quality from the moment Yom Kippur ends all the way through Sukkot to the very end of the festival. And I cannot mention that teaching this year, a mere 1 year after the October 7th attack, without pointing out that, of course, many times during Jewish history, terrible things happened to our people, even during times like Sukkot, when we were supposedly under the embrace of divine protection and embraced in divine love. We have to acknowledge the reality that that theological concept of being embraced by the divine right hand of chesed, of loving kindness, does not mean that everything that manifests in our world meets our criteria for an easy time, a good time, for pleasant experiences. And hopefully some of that chesed is going to manifest this year, please God, and in future years in ways that we will enjoy it. We're told by the Kabbalists over and over again that the nature of the Infinite One, the Ein Sof, is good and wanting to give goodness, to bestow goodness upon the creations, upon us. So we are here actually, according to the Kabbalists, to enjoy our existence, to receive pleasure and to grow and to learn how to appreciate existence fully. So how does Sukkot help us on this journey of growth? Let's explore some teachings from Rav Kook. Rabbi Abraham Isaac Kook, first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of Priestay Israel, a towering mystic, as well as poet, legal authority, leader of our people. And he says that Sukkot helps us in so many ways with the integration of our Yom Kippur experience. For example, he says that if we've been on the journey from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, connecting with our higher self, visioning the future self we want to be, and committing over and over again in our prayers, resolving to try and act from our highest possible place inside, from our wise self, from our inner parent self, and so on, as we've discussed on the previous episodes. He says, if we've been doing that work, then we may have become detached from more practical worldly affairs. We may be so connected to our higher self that we don't know how to re-engage in the physical matters of day-to-day life. Well, fear not, he says, because we are given a tremendous gift in the mitzvot, the commandments or connections of preparing for Sukkot, building the sukkah, the booth I mentioned before, buying or preparing the 4 species. These are physical, worldly acts which are also connecting us. Mitzvah, they are mitzvot, they are connections to the infinite source of life. And he says we perform them while the beautiful, sublime glow, the aura of Yom Kippur is still hovering over us. All that spiritual work we did, all that prayer and purification is still with us and hovering over us as we re-engage in this physical, worldly affair of getting ready for this very earthy festival. In fact, Rav Kook says explicitly, the character of Sukkot is that it brings together, it reconciles and synthesizes the natural and the supernatural. As I mentioned before, there's so much about what grows in the ground on Sukkot. And yet we're also taught in the Talmud, the booths the Israelites dwelt in when they were in the desert, which we model our Sukkot after, were not only regular booths. According to one opinion, they were the clouds of glory, the Ananei HaKavod. So when we are sitting in our very physical sukkah, that we had to build ourselves, and that had to include things growing from the ground in it. And we're holding our 4 species of things that grow from the ground, and we're waving them around while asking for rain and abundance and fertility, as the prayers of this festival do over and over. He says we are synthesizing the natural and the supernatural, just as the rain comes down from the heavens. And actually, it's very beautiful. The word for rain, geshem, itself in Hebrew, that root, that shoresh, actually has come to mean to materialize, to take substantial form, to manifest in this world. L'hitgashem is exactly that verb. So the very word we have for rain, which this festival is so much about, that thing that comes down from the infinite heavens to the earth, and that we need so much for life to continue on this earth, the rain itself is a paradigm of what it means to bridge that divine from supernatural to natural, and to make life possible, we have to learn how to do the same. Now let's look at another idea from Rav Kook about how this festival is the time of chesed, of loving kindness, and how we can grow with that energy. He says, if we've been making teshuvah, this journey from Elul to Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, of refining ourselves, returning to our true selves, trying to give up that which does not serve us and serve life, and trying to be a better person. He says, if we've been doing that, then necessarily some part of that process is denying ourselves things which did not serve us and serve life. Some part of teshuvah, as much as we try and make it positive, try and connect with our higher self, try and do the good, he says some part of it is the sumera, the keep away from what is not good. Keep away from what is dragging you down, your old habits, your old addictions, and so on. And so he says, our ratzon, our desire or will, has necessarily become accustomed to us reining it in a disciplined way. He's saying part of our work over the last few weeks, if we've been doing the work of teshuvah, is saying no to ourselves, denying ourselves things. And now, I hope we've been doing this in a way that's skillful and kind and has only helped us grow. But even if we have, he says, even if we've done it as best we possibly can, we have necessarily been refusing our ratzon, our desire or our will, instead of indulging it. And he says something very beautiful. He says, Sukkot is a chance to direct our desire and to direct our will and say yes to it, and to say yes to this world and this life and physical sensation and materiality, all again with this beautiful spirit of connectedness, of relationship, of mitzvah, of kedusha, of sanctity hovering over it. Because when we do these physical acts of going into the sukkah and shaking the 4 species in the different directions to bring rain and fertility to them, and having festive meals and singing and rejoicing, saying the Hallel prayers and so on, these are all very, very, very physical, embodied practices, but we are doing them all in the context of connection, of being surrounded by the clouds of glory, of being sheltered in divine love, of that right hand of the divine hugging us. So, in other words, we are being given a chance here to express our will, not to deny ourselves, not to say no, but to say yes to life, yes to our desire, and to channel our desire in a way that is really fully vibrant and alive. And bless you that you experienced this Sukkot, a moment, and I hope as many moments as possible, of the vibrancy of being alive, of the miracle of the combination of the natural and the supernatural that we are, the explainable and the completely incomprehensible, the completely miraculous. That is our lives, and that we can embody that and enjoy that. Zman simchatenu, this is the time of our joy. The Torah commands, or again connects us, that word mitzvah again, to experience joy at this time. And of course, how can anybody be commanded to experience any emotion? Well, we're told that if we enter into these practices, then what we will experience will be some version of that. Maybe one pathway to this joy is in the final idea I'd like to share from Rav Kook. He comments on a passage in the Talmud, in the Masechet, the tractate known as Sukkah, where it says that we can fulfill this commandment, this mitzvah of the Sukkah, in anybody's Sukkah at all. It doesn't only have to be my own. And the Talmud comments there, it says, really, this teaches that all of our people, all of Israel, really are fit to be in one Sukkah. Meaning, in theory, we could actually all literally be all in the same Sukkah, our entire people. And this very, very beautiful idea is taken by the mystics to understand that through going into our Sukkah or any Sukkah, we are actually present in every Sukkah. We are actually present with all of our entire nation. That the Sukkah is a kind of portal to the unity of our people. And Rav Kook offers a beautiful idea about this. He says, of course, he says, we've been making teshuvah, we've been on this journey we've been talking about of refining ourselves and returning to our higher selves. And he says, as long as we were not making that journey to refine ourselves and purify ourselves, he says, of course, all our different thoughts and opinions, some of which are not so kind sometimes about ourselves or others, they got in the way. All the things that I think I'm so right about, that others are so wrong about, and so on, they get in the way of unity. They get in the way of healthy relationship. He says, after we've done the work of Teshuvah, of Rosh Hashanah, of Yom Kippur, after I've refined myself and returned to my higher self, of course then I realize that all the things that I was so solidly attached to, all of the opinions I thought were so sacred, and anyone who thought the opposite must be insane or evil, God forbid. Of course, if I've really been doing the work, I realize the deeper truth at play here. And for Rav Kook, this was so obvious, and he spoke about it so much, that all the different perspectives are actually complementary in the most literal sense. They actually are necessary to complete each other. We might think someone is diametrically opposed to us, politically, religiously, whatever it is. But actually, Rav Kook says over and over again, I need that opposing opinion, that opposing camp, politically, he says, to balance, to complement, to complete my way of looking at things. And likewise, everybody needs different perspectives other than their own, opposite to their own, to complete their own perspective. And he says, of course, before we made Teshuvah, we didn't appreciate this. We just thought those people were crazy or evil. We dismissed them, whatever it is. But now we've made Teshuvah, he says, of course, now we've been really doing this work. We are ready to sit all in one sukkah together and to appreciate how even those who may seem so far from me and maybe even threatening to me in what they think and what they say, they are necessary for me to be my best self. And I actually need a healthy connection with them to be my best self. This seems to me to be a very timely teaching for us as we are right now in the world. And I pray that we will all experience the joy of being in the sukkah, surrounded by the clouds of glory, feeling the love of the Creator, and also feeling the love of those who are different to us. So here's a practice which ideally you can perform in person, but if you can't, then you can perform it with your imaginations. The practice is this: invite yourself into the sukkah with somebody that you radically disagree with, to such an extent that you find them threatening, that you find them uncomfortable to be around, and let yourself enter into a real dialogue with them. As I said, if it's not possible in this physical reality, then let it happen in your imagination. Maybe in your sukkah, maybe in someone else's sukkah. Let yourself encounter that which is so different to you that it's scary, and let yourself do the work that Rav Kook describes for us of trying to find the way that actually these two very different perspectives complement each other and complete each other and balance each other, and they're both part of a whole which are both needed to get us as a people and us as a species to a better place. As Reb Zalman Schachter Shlomi famously said, the only way we're going to get it together is together. Chag Sameach.